Hey guys, welcome back to Jessin Reads Romance. I'm Jessin and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in February, kind of going over my stats overall. I've been keeping track of a lot of things using my Airtable and I have some graphics and some stats to share with you guys. And I won't be going over every single book that I read in February because I do weekly videos, weekly wrap-ups now. I'll link all those videos in the description box down below if you want to go check those out for a detailed breakdown of each book that I've read during February. I do want to make a note that I did miss one in my last weekly roundup. I thought that I only had read 6 books, but I had read one more that I totally forgot about. I don't know why, I just skipped over it. The book was called Only You by Melanie Harlow. It was a kind of surprise dad, baby left on doorstep situation, and a neighbor's romance. So it was a really cute romance. I enjoyed it. The conflict wasn't my favorite, so that's why I gave it 4 stars overall, but I just wanted to mention that I did miss that one. If you watch my previous January wrap-up, then you'll know that I read a ton of books in that month. 45 books is just not my norm. So I had a steep drop-off this month. I only read 27 books, which is honestly still really good for me. Like, I still read a ton, and I thought that I would have an even bigger drop-off this month than just going down from 45 to 27. I do like to keep track of like the trends and what month that I read the most. So I'm excited to keep track of all this because I didn't do any of this for 2020. And yeah, I'm a numbers girl. I like seeing these things. And then I also like to keep track of the genres of romance that I'm reading, and I'm keeping track of it yearly. So I just want to see as a whole, how am I doing for 2021? And I'm not doing much better than 2020. I still read majority contemporary, even though I want to increase my historical and my paranormal / urban fantasy and fantasy. So you can see in this graphic, it's all broken down. 63% of my reads for 2021 have been contemporary romance, and historical romance is right behind, well, not right behind it, like not even close, 20%. And then I put fantasy by itself and urban fantasy grouped in with paranormal because a lot of times people get those confused anyway. So I just kind of grouped them in because I wanted to separate those out just a little bit more. So I still need to work on that. By the end of the year, I want it to be more equally spread, but I'm also a mood reader. I only have so much control on what I want to read. My mood dictates a lot of things. Something I'm really happy about is the amount of indies that I'm reading versus traditionally published books. I don't want to like not read traditionally published books, but I do want to discover more indie authors. I really love the stories that they have to tell. A lot of times they're able to tell a story where if they pitch the same story to a big 5 publishing house, they might say, oh, maybe don't do it that way. Maybe change this one because they want to be very careful that they're not like offending people. I would just say that traditionally published books tend to be more cautious with what they're able to put out. For example, dark romance. You really won't see traditional publishers putting out dark romance. Indie romance authors are able to tell those stories without having to like edit out some of the darker aspects of it. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I'm all for supporting indie authors. In addition to the 26 books that I finished, I did have 1 DNF. I usually don't give 1 star, so you won't be seeing those from me, not really. I never say never, but honestly, you really won't be seeing 1 or 1.5 stars from me. I had 1 2-star book, 3 2.5 stars, which is not the norm. I don't usually have that many like 2.5 stars. 6 3 stars, 2 3.5s, 6 4 stars, 4 4.5 stars, and 4 5 stars. So honestly, really good stats. I had more books that I rated, 3.5 and above than I would consider like solid 3s and below. Those are the ones that I'm just kind of like wouldn't really recommend. Well, I say wouldn't recommend, it just wouldn't be the first thing that I would recommend. But I still, if I know a person would enjoy it because there's something in the book that's pretty personal, which influenced my rating of it, then I would still recommend a 3-star book. So anyway, let's go over the books that were my least favorite first, and then I'll go over my favorite books of February. The book that I DNF'd was The Architect by Nikki Sloan. I just didn't feel very much chemistry from the main characters. It had a weird setup in the beginning. At least I felt like it was so strange. Like I wasn't really on board with the concept of this neighbor age gap romance and secret BDSM lifestyle. It just wasn't intriguing me. And then it's also an MFM romance. And with MFM romances or MMF romances, when you have 3 people in a relationship, I need to feel like everybody is on board with being in a relationship and everybody has chemistry. More so for MMF because like literally everybody is in a relationship together. And then MFM, it's just one shared woman and the men do not have a relationship other than we're 2 people who share the same woman. But I wasn't feeling the chemistry between the first guy that we were introduced and our heroine. So it just wasn't working out for me. So I decided to DNF because I didn't see myself loving the book anyway, and I decided to move on. Then for my lone 2-star, it's very rare that I give a book a straight up 2-star. I'll mostly DNF it before it gets to that point, but the reason why I finished it was because this was like a very short novella length book. Baby It's Cold by Madison Faye. It's a holiday novella. It was free on her website. I actually got 15 inches and then it came as like a bundle. She emailed both files. And I really wanted 15 inches, decided just to read Baby It's Cold. So it's a holiday novella and it's an age gap romance and it's a very smutty erotica. It's not a romance per se because it's not like a definitive relationship by the end of the book. It's just they bang once and then the story's over, which is the same for 15 inches. The whole concept of this book is that the main characters are enacting the lyrics of Baby It's Cold Outside. Like they're not role playing, it's just actually just happening that way. And it was creepy. I didn't love that relationship between them. So that was my lone 2-star. And then I had a couple 2.5 stars. I was definitely being more critical whenever I was rating these books, but 15 inches definitely solidly. I put 2.5 because it was better than Baby It's Cold, but again, it was an erotica. And I don't mean that it was an erotic romance, which means that it is a definite romance, but more focuses on the sex than the relationship. This one is straight up erotica because there is no relationship. There's no like, we want more than this one night, one thing. So the heroine is part of a CrossFit class and the teacher is a really muscular dude. She forgets something, goes back to her locker and hears the showers on in the women's locker room and sees her instructor who has a 15-inch dick. And he's stroking it and she's doing a little voyeur thing, and then she comes back the next night and they have their one little night of passion and scene. That's it. So that's why this is erotica and not erotic romance, because there's no defined relationship with this couple. Then this is interesting. So I reread, I don't know why, I was in the mood to reread something that was on my Kindle, caught my eye, hadn't read it in a while. I reread Until November by Aurora Rose Reynolds, and I remembered like enjoying the book. I didn't remember it being like something that was my favorite by any means, but I thought that it was like a light, simple, not too heavy content type of romance. It was pretty low angst relationship wise. And so I decided to reread it again and I pretty much hated it. When I reread it, I was like, man, I don't like this at all. Why did I think that I enjoyed this the first time? Maybe, I think I did enjoy this the first time. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 years ago, but nothing really was working with me. The heroine, the dialogue was very annoying. I think in my weekly wrap up, I mentioned how you could take a shot for every time she said, whatever, and rolled her eyes, and you would be passed out within the first couple of chapters. I'd rather authors just delete all that unnecessary dialogue or stammering type of stuff because it lends nothing to the story at all. And it's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like that. And she did it the whole time. And then the hero was overbearing. And it was like supposed to be cute because he was protective of her and like he knew that he wanted her, and right away he like fell in love and it was supposed to be love at first sight, but he was overly possessive in a way that I didn't find attractive. And I love alpha males. Like that's not an issue with me. I don't really get turned off by displays of possessiveness or jealousy. I don't get turned off by that, but this was too much for me. I was just like, no, drop his ass and like set your boundaries and be like, I'm an actual adult. Don't tell me what to do. So anyway, I didn't enjoy it. And then I have A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and this is a Hades and Persephone retelling. I know a lot of people really like this, and you guys might be like, why did you rate this 2.5 stars? And I was just really frustrated with the story itself. It had a lot of similarities to Lore Olympus, and so I was comparing them a lot, and I was just like, Lore Olympus does it better. So I just had that kind of thing going on, but also I didn't like the main characters like they were written. Like, they bothered me. Persephone, I felt like, was very annoying in the way that she was approaching things. She was seeking independence, wanted to prove herself at work, but like, she was kind of whining, and she was just assuming that Hades was this horrible person. And every time he demonstrated that things weren't as they seemed, and that he was actually a good guy who was doing some good things, and he wasn't the total asshole that she thought him to be, she still like forgot about that like 2 pages later. And then Hades was just kind of a very meh character for me. I don't know, he didn't do it for me at all. I wasn't very interested in his whole setup. And yeah, it really fell flat for me. And I don't know. I say that I always want to read a Hades and Persephone story. And honestly, I can only name 2 Hades and Persephone stories that I like, retellings that I like, and that would be Lore Olympus, which is a webcomic, and A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the 2nd book in the series. So those are the only 2 that I really liked. And now for my 4.5 and 5 stars, I'm going to start with the 4.5 stars and talk about why these really stood out to me, why I was just like, this worked for me so well. The first one was A Court of Thorns and Roses. This is my first time that I read this book series. I'd never read anything by Sarah J. Maas before, and I was convinced to read it before the new book came out, A Court of Silver Flames, and I really loved it. It had a bit of a slow start, but once she was really in like the Fae world, Farah, once she was in the world of Prithian, it really picked up for me because I was like, ooh, interesting. I want to know how this operates. And then at the midway point, stuff really starts happening, and I loved every little bit of it. I loved it so much. Great characters, very interesting fantasy world, and I can't believe that it took me so long to read this. Next, I had my reread of White Lilies by Samantha Christie. This is an unconventional romance. I have been really into those lately, and White Lilies is something that I've been trying to get Juliet to read, and I finally put on the podcast and basically was like, if you don't like it, it's fine. We'll have a conversation on the podcast saying why I like it and why it didn't work for you. Luckily, she ended up by loving it, and we had a great discussion. But the reason why this is an unconventional romance is because the heroine is a surrogate and the hero is married. This is a romance that does not have cheating. It all works out in the end. It is emotional. It will tug on your heartstrings. It's one of the books that made me cry. I don't have a ton of books that I can name off the top of my head that made me cry, but White Lilies definitely did. And I just loved the characters. Skylar is the heroine, the hero is Griffin, and then there's another character named Aaron that I loved equally as much as my hero and my heroine, and it was just such a beautiful story. Next, I had Filthy by Serena Ackroyd, another new to me author. This is an Irish mob romance, and I've really been enjoying some mafia romance. It was so hot and so different, and I really like mafia families that really feel like a family. And Finn, though he is not a part of the actual like mob boss's family, he is kind of like the adopted son. And I really loved the camaraderie between him and Aiden Sr. Aiden Sr. is like kind of psychotic. He's the head of the 5 Points mob. And I honestly can't wait to see more of him in the rest of the series. I've only read this first one. But let me guys tell you, this is such a hot romance. I like can't get over it. A lot of times when I read romances that have excessive amounts of sex scenes, I will skip over them because I'm like, it doesn't really lend anything to their relationship, and the sex scene is just kind of like, oh, okay, they're doing it again. Let's move on. When I am like devouring the sex scenes, that's whenever I'm like, oh my God, this is such great writing. And that's how I felt reading sex scenes for Serena Ackroyd. It was like, just give me more and more and more. Every single encounter that these two characters had, I was like, this is so hot, this is so steamy, and I just loved it. And it really reflected a lot of things that were going on in their relationship. So I just thought it was very purposefully done and very, very steamy. And for the last 4.5 stars, I have Deliver by Pam Godwin. This is only the second book by Pam Godwin that I've ever read, and it is a dark romance, like really dark romance. It has sex trafficking and stalking and rape. I mean, it is dark, guys, and wow. Pam Godwin blows my mind because I was like, how is this gonna work? I don't know how she's going to do this, but she does it. She does it. And I listened to this on audio. It was really good audio. There's actually a pack of 3, like the first 3 books have a combined audiobook that you can get for 1 credit. The next 3 are also packaged, and then I think once the final book in the series, the 9th book, is done, there will be a package of those as well. And I'm kind of debating on just like taking my time with the rest of the books in the series because I want to get the packs of 3 audiobooks because I'm gonna listen to all of these on audio. And now for my 5 stars. These 5 stars books, man. Okay, my favorite book, one of my favorite books that I read for this month is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This was so freaking good. I did not like The Roommate. I love The Intimacy Experiment. You can really see like the relationship between Naomi and Ethan. It was so good. Like these two had such great chemistry. Naomi is a former porn star and Ethan is a rabbi for Reformed Judaism. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's kind of a forbidden romance because Naomi's just like, obviously, how would that work out with a rabbi? His congregation would never accept me. But Ethan in no way ever makes Naomi feel like she's anything less than because of her past as a porn star or her association with Shameless, which is a subscription site. And it's really focused on giving people, empowering people with self-pleasure and just like getting to know their bodies and stuff. And it's just really sex positive. And I love this romance so much. Ethan approaches Naomi to do a whole seminar on intimacy and how that can be incorporated for a younger audience for his congregation, because he's trying to look for new people to be brought in and he's looking for a way to connect with younger people. And he's like, what greater way than to talk about like dating, and not just dating but like intimacy. And it was so good, all the scenes, because she does do like a couple different sessions, like lessons. Oh my god, they were so good. I just loved it. I love everything about this book. Ethan is just my sweet baby angel. I love him so much. I can't say enough about this book. Then of course, A Court of Mist and Fury. What? I love this book so much. It is still my favorite book that Sarah J. Maas has written, but I've only read this series. I have not read The Throne of Glass, and I've not read Crescent City. Throne of Glass seems a little bit intimidating right now, but I'm probably going to read Crescent City. There's not much to say besides this was a great Hades and Persephone retelling, and Rhys and Farah in this book are just so beautiful. This book was perfection. I loved every minute of it. I have a whole vlog series out for the Court of Thorns and Roses series. Yeah, it took me a while to get through my thoughts because I had so many of them, so there's a couple different parts. Then I did a reread of Clean Sweep by Alona Andrews. They're just so phenomenal at world building. I love it. It's a kind of, it's a sci-fi romance, but it is set on Earth, but there are definite aliens. The heroine Dina is an innkeeper, and this is a type of magical human being, and they are bound to their house. And the house, like they have powers that connect with the house, and think of it like a bed and breakfast for aliens. And it is just the coolest thing you'll ever read. There are werewolves, there are types of vampires, which both of those are aliens in this world, and it's just like so freaking cool. It's not a very long book, and it's still just absolutely just chef's kiss. Love it. It is the least steamiest book that I read this month. I have like a little snowflake next to the steaminess because there's only like one kiss that happens in this book. So low on the steam, high on the action, and just like the laughs. And oh my god, it's so good. So good. And then finally, I have Just One More Time by Rosie Adams. I really enjoyed this book so much. Another one that tugged on my heartstrings. The way that Orlando bonded with Jamie, who was an orphan who he had connected with before he lost his mother. And then Katrina is a social worker that's in charge of Jamie's Jamie's case, and she and Orlando had a history. They were together in college and Orlando ended it, and so now this is the first time that they're meeting years and years later, and Orlando wants a second shot. And of course it's kind of like forced proximity, because since Katrina's handling Jamie's case, and Orlando wants to be a foster father to Jamie because he was also adopted into the Johnson family, so he wants to be that person that his adoptive father was to this little boy. And it just like, oh, it was so good. It was so freaking good. Definitely my favorite in the series so far, but I've only read 3. All right, guys, it is getting dark, and that's my February wrap up. We'll see what I do in March. I am definitely going to try to include some more historical romances into the mix. We have the Kindle Clear Out readathon that's happening in March, so who knows what's going to happen with that. I have a ton of audiobooks because I love readathons, and I always challenge myself to read the most that I can during readathons, and I want to be very prepared because I do have a bingo board that has prompts. But if I need to mood read and not follow the prompts, I would still be happy with reading, 6+ books just for this readathon. I would be ecstatic. I'd love to know in the comments what your 5-star reads were for February. Just let me know if something like really stood out for you this month, because I'm always wanting to get somebody else's opinion on like what's a 5-star read for you. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe to get notified at any future videos that I do. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, life's better with a little HEA. Bye, guys.